Look at her arm. Caitlin Clark has recorded just 8 non-technical free throws across her last 12 quarters of action, and somehow, the pattern keeps getting harder to ignore. Fresh footage from the Fever's win over the Chicago Sky is exploding across social media right now, but this time, nobody is focused on a crossover, a logo 3, or some impossible highlight reel dime. The camera caught something far more unsettling. Caitlin Clark's forearm appears covered in what look like fingernail scratches, marks that immediately raise questions about what happened during the battle. These aren't the kind of marks you expect from simply defending a player. They look like the aftermath of someone grabbing, clawing, and desperately hanging on because they cannot stay with her any other way. And if those scratches tell the story, the real drama may have happened away from the scoreboard, where every possession becomes a physical fight just to slow her down.
Game that Djonai Carrington had circled on her calendar and wanted the world to see happen tonight. And how did it turn out? Caitlin Clark had 37 points, 10 assists, 8 threes, and we got this lovely reaction. But I want to point out something that happened in the game. Some of the Chicago Sky, including Djonai Carrington, to me, were looking for a fight this game. And Caitlin, instead of talking about it in the media, just did it with her basketball skills. And this is one of the plays that happened.
Indiana can regain the lead. Clark, another step back 3. Yes. And a little bit of passion afterwards. You love it. This is.
So Djonai purposely runs into Clark, and then Clark just waves her off. Just waves her off. You can tell that Clark was just over that storyline and with that rivalry.
And here's the part that should make everyone genuinely uneasy when you watch it back. Almost none of it was called. Possession after possession, defenders appeared draped across Clark, tugging jerseys, clutching arms, digging in with their nails as if the prize belongs to whoever can leave the deepest mark. Yet the whistle remains completely silent. No call, no warning, nothing. And this isn't some isolated moment from one heated possession that got out of hand. It's a pattern that's been growing for weeks, happening openly while everyone watches. The more footage surfaces, the harder it becomes to dismiss as simple physical defense. Then came the tweet that ignited the entire conversation, cutting straight through the noise and describing the situation in the most brutal terms possible. Suddenly, what looked like ordinary contact started appearing very different, and fans began asking the question nobody wanted to confront.
It took the ref 30 business days to call this foul on Caitlin Clark. But of course they want to demonize Clark and be like, she was overreacting. She's the most fouled player in the league. What are we doing? Why was the whistle not blown right here? Grabbing her, blow the fucking whistle, man. And then she had to do all this again to finally put her hand up. Like, what are we doing, man? Enrique's ugly ass falling down all over the place, foul call. You look at Asia Wilson, foul call, but it takes the ref looking direct. Look, why is her hand not up? Takes the ref 30 business days to call this. But let's demonize Clark. No, all these players fear Caitlin Clark. They fear for their lives when this woman is on the court and they have to hack her, tackle her. Odyssey Sims tackle Clark in this game and everything because she's the 11th best guard and we're going to guard her this way though. Like, you guys are fucking ridiculous, man. It's like the refs just want Clark to get beat up and hacked. These people just want her to just play through it. And it's like, it's not part of the game to get fouled and have to play through it, man.
Caitlin Clark has just 8 non-technical free throws across her last 12 quarters of action. 8 free throws through 12 complete quarters of basketball. That isn't a typo, and it isn't something you can simply brush aside with a small sample size excuse. We're talking about nearly 3 full games where one of the league's most targeted and physically pressured guards has barely reached the charity stripe at all. For a player constantly fighting through contact, that number becomes impossible to ignore. Every quarter passes, every defender crowds her space, and somehow the whistles remain scarce. The deeper you look, the stranger the statistic becomes.
I'm about to show you 10 missed calls last game. That Caitlin Clark got fouled and the ref never called it. There's a moving screen. She's moving all over the place. Hits her with the shoulder like always. Look at this. Fouls her, holding her, and fouls the crap out of her. No foul. Look at this. She got fouled the whole game. They didn't call this a foul. Look at this one. Like, her body's all over her. How is that not a foul? Look at this one. Cardosa swipes her once, twice, just tries to grab her. Can you imagine being fouled the entire game? Every time you hit half court, Every time you dribble, every time you drive, look at this. Sheldon clearly has her hand on Caitlin Clark's shoulder when she's shooting it. They even showed a replay. It's exactly where I thought it was. Watch this. Her arm is on Caitlin Clark's shoulder the whole time.
Think about what that number really means for a moment, because it's easy to scroll past a statistic like that without realizing how disturbing it becomes. Free throws exist because the rule book draws a line where physical contact becomes illegal. When a player who gets bumped, grabbed, and shoved as frequently as Clark does reaches the line only a handful of times through 12 consecutive quarters, that's difficult to explain away as cleaner basketball or reduced contact. The timing makes it even more troubling. The whistle appears quieter on her precisely when the pressure surrounding her has intensified. Every possession brings another defender into her space, another collision, another battle for position, yet the calls remain strangely limited, and that creates a pattern nobody can comfortably ignore. The harder these defenses seem to attack her physically, the less protection appears to come back from the officials. In a competitive sport, that's supposed to work the other way. Increased illegal contact should produce increased whistles, not silent. And when the silence keeps happening around the same player, the statistic suddenly feels much bigger than a number.
For this WNBA player to be suspended after she intentionally pokes Caitlin Clark in the eye, you can see here she misses the ball with an open palm and then hones it into this little sharp pointy hand and jabs it right into her eyeball. One more time, right in the eye. And believe it or not, she didn't even get a foul for this. It was so intense as well that as the game progressed, you could tell she was getting a black eye just from the hit. There is no doubt in my mind that what this WNBA player did was 100% intentional, and honestly, I think it should have a huge suspension as well.
Because let's be honest about what appears to be happening on the floor right now, week after week. When defenders can't get in front of her, can't stay attached off the dribble, and can't challenge her without committing an obvious foul, the options start getting smaller. And when the conventional ways of stopping her aren't working, every remaining bit of physical pressure suddenly matters. A poke near the face can happen in an instant, while a full tackle to the floor is far too obvious for almost any official to overlook. But smaller contact is harder to catch. A subtle grab here, a scratch there, something brief enough to escape the whistle during live action, yet visible enough on replay the following morning to make people stop and look twice. That's where this becomes uncomfortable. The footage doesn't prove what any individual defender intended, but repeated marks and repeated contact naturally invite questions about how physical these defenses have become. Maybe it's simply aggressive competition taken too far. Maybe it's frustration. Maybe officials are missing small incidents happening too quickly to see clearly. But when the same player keeps absorbing this kind of punishment, the bigger concern becomes impossible to ignore. Is the goal simply to disrupt her rhythm and force mistake, or could this level of contact eventually push beyond frustration and create a genuine risk of injury? Either way, the pattern deserves a much closer look.
This wasn't called a foul. This wasn't called a flagrant foul. There was no whistle blown on this play. This play never went under review. This play has absolutely nothing to do with basketball. As you can see, the ball is all the way over there. This is just someone getting mauled. The WNBA is stupid and is not a serious organization.
And this is exactly why the free throw statistic matters, because it's not merely a number being tossed around online to create outrage or farm engagement across the league. Once you start tracking the hard fouls, tackles that somehow escape the whistle, off-ball holding, and contact happening far away from the ball, the picture becomes much harder to dismiss. Clark appears to be absorbing an extraordinary amount of physical pressure while receiving very little protection in return. She takes hit after hit, contact that many neutral viewers watching live would immediately consider a foul. Then she gets back up, runs down the court, and attacks again on the very next possession as if nothing happened. That's where her resilience becomes almost as shocking as the controversy itself. Most players dealing with that much uncalled contact would eventually become cautious. They'd hesitate on drives, avoid crowded lanes, or pull away from the exact areas where defenders are waiting to make contact. Clark hasn't shown much of that retreat. If anything, she keeps coming forward, attacking the same spaces where the grabbing and physical pressure seem to happen most often. And that creates another uncomfortable question. How long can that level of punishment continue before resilience turns into something far more costly?
These are plays we've seen from DJ.
These are the plays. Look. Yanking her hair down. Oh, that's a basketball play, y'all. And tell me if you notice a common denominator. Look. Basketball play, look. Basketball play. I didn't know you can rip somebody's hair out. That's a basketball. Look. Ankle injury. That's a basketball play, y'all. Look, poke right in the eye. It's not this many basketball plays in the world. There's not this many coincidences in the world. She went up like this and came down like this and poked an eye. Knocked her all upside her head. Now she got to see Like, this is what you call a track record. Look, not even going for the ball. Like, come on.
But that's what Djonai Carrington does.
And we know, and that's been part of the problem, because we've been telling y'all, this is what she does and has a track.
This isn't the first time DJ Carrington's name has entered this exact conversation either. Fans have pointed to her physical play around Clark before, dating back to a playoff matchup when another swipe near the face went viral for precisely the same reason this latest footage is spreading now. The disturbing part is how familiar the sequence feels. Something happens on the court, the whistle stays silent, the game continues. Then, hours later, someone slows the video down, isolates the moment, and suddenly the internet is staring at what everyone missed in real time. That delay between the live call and the replay verdict has started becoming a pattern of its own. Not because the workload suddenly became lighter, not because the incidents disappeared. They happened while the games were being played in front of national television audiences, with millions watching every possession. And that brings us to the second half of this story, because while all of this has been unfolding, while her arm is showing scratches and the whistle repeatedly seems to remain tucked inside the referee's pocket, Caitlin Clark has quietly been producing numbers that are rewriting the record books in real time. Here's the tweet now circulating alongside the footage of her arm. Once you actually look at the numbers, the contrast becomes almost impossible to ignore. Most 30-point, 10-assist games in WNBA history, Caitlin Clark, 5. The rest of WNBA history combined, 4. Let that number sit for a moment, because the gap is enormous. Every other player in league history combined has produced 4 such games. Clark alone has 5. She's reached that mark more times than everyone else put together, despite having only a fraction of the career length enjoyed by many of the players she's being compared against. That's not simply a hot streak lasting a few weeks. It's not one fortunate stretch against weak competition or a schedule breaking perfectly in her favor. It's a statistical level of offensive production that demands attention, especially from the point guard position, and she's doing it while repeatedly absorbing the kind of contact that could make almost any player hesitate before attacking the paint again. The numbers are impressive by themselves, but when you place them beside the growing debate over the physical treatment she's receiving, the entire story suddenly becomes much harder to look away from.
Caitlin Clark now has more 30-point, 10-assist games in her career, with 5, than the rest of the WNBA has combined in league history. Let that sink in. I'm going to have a sip of coffee while that sinks in. Yeah. Yeah, by herself, she's got more 30-point, 10-assist games by herself than the entire league combined. Entire league history combined.
It also raises a legitimate question about consistency across the rest of the league. Plenty of WNBA guards absorb contact every single night, and plenty of them receive calls in situations where Clark seemingly doesn't get the same benefit. That's not an attack on those players. Most are simply competing with the same aggressive, physical style the league has always allowed and rewarded. The real question belongs to the people carrying the whistles. If the definition of a foul appears to shift depending on which player is absorbing the contact, then we're no longer talking about a minor officiating inconsistency. We're talking about fairness. And fairness is one of those problems that rarely disappears when nobody addresses it. It usually grows quieter, deeper, and harder to fix the longer it remains unresolved. The longer questionable contact goes uncalled, the more normal it becomes, until everyone starts treating the standard as if it was always supposed to be that way. That's when a simple officiating debate turns into something much bigger.
So, look at this. This is where you're like, this is loser shit. Oh, I'm going to pretend to flop. Djonai just shoved Caitlin. She literally just walked into Caitlin and shoved her. Caitlin dribbled the ball and she just shoved her. And she just goes that. Caitlin didn't even throw her head back. And then waits for Caitlin, like, starts shit talking, throws her head back. Caitlin doesn't see her, and then goes and does it again. Like, that is the most loser shit ever. That is the most loser shit ever. Like, and the worst part is that Djonai checked into the game while Caitlin Clark was, while Caitlin was on the bench, and Djonai started off really well. Really well, Djonai started. As soon as Caitlin Clark, as soon as Caitlin Clark checks in the game, Djonai suddenly is like, I don't care about basketball anymore. I don't care about basketball. The only thing that I care about is, can I go and clip for?
And that's exactly what makes this story so difficult to ignore once you actually let the full picture sink in. This isn't a player collapsing under the physical pressure or quietly fading beneath the weight of it. This is a player taking scratches, grabs, tackles, and repeated contact while receiving surprisingly few whistles for any of it. And instead of retreating from that pressure, she's producing the most dominant stretch of 30-point, 10-assist games this league has ever seen. Every time a defender appears to choose grabbing her arm over staying in front of her with their feet, Clark seems to answer by returning to the floor and threatening another massive performance. If the intention was to frustrate her into a slump, break her rhythm, or wear her down until the production finally disappeared, it simply hasn't happened. Not even close. The physical pressure hasn't stopped her from attacking. It hasn't convinced her to play smaller. And it hasn't erased the numbers appearing beside her name week after week. Instead, the harder the challenge seems to become, the more aggressively she keeps responding. That's what makes the situation so strange. The contact is obvious, the whistles are limited, yet the production keeps climbing. Whatever defenders are trying to accomplish, the scoreboard suggests Clark hasn't received the message.
Now, it is no way y'all trying to talk about Caitlin Clark shooting 13 free throws. The same people that call Asia Special Whistle Wilson the GOAT, that shoots 50 million free throws a game. The same people that glaze Angel Reese, the free throw merchant that has to flop to get points because she can't shoot. Free throw merchant, but Clark got 13 free throws in a loss. But also, when Angel Reese gets a double-double and has a good game in a loss, it's glazed. But when Clark has a good game in a loss, they want to shit on it and do the opposite and be the goofies that they are, man. Goofy, man. Clark is the most fouled player in the league. She got the whistle that she deserved today versus the Dallas Wings, man. She should be shooting free throws like that every single game because people just hold on to her and try to foul her all the time because there ain't no other.
That contrast is really the entire story, and it's worth stating plainly one more time before this ends. 8 non-technical free throws through 12 quarters, while defenders appear to scratch her arm and escape with contact that might draw whistles in other situations around the league. Yet during that exact same stretch, she's producing a historic run that the rest of the WNBA has never matched collectively across its entire existence. Those two facts sitting side by side should at least force the league office to take a much harder look. Caitlin Clark still walks off the court with the assist, she still walks away with the point, and she keeps adding records that the rest of the league combined simply cannot reach. No matter how many defenders are sent toward her, no matter how much physical pressure follows her from possession to possession, the marks on her arm may show how desperately some opponents are trying to slow her down. But the record book tells the other half of the story in numbers that cannot be argued with. It shows exactly how effective that strategy has actually been. And right now, those numbers aren't favoring the people trying to stop her. Not even close. They can crowd her, grab her, challenge her, and make every possession uncomfortable. They may leave her with scratches after the final whistle, but when the game ends, Clark keeps leaving with production, records, and another reminder that whatever the strategy is supposed to accomplish, the record book says it isn't working. Not yet.
I think that the referees are in on it. Meaning, like, I think the referees potentially being directed by the commissioner are in on really screwing with this chick and really trying to, I don't know if run her out of the league or make her look stupid or what. Am I the only one that thinks this? She's on her 6th or 7th. I think at 8 you get suspended for a game. She picked up her 8th, but then, they quickly reversed it.
All she got to become is lesbian.
Every single
they'll quit.
Well, but what if she doesn't want to be lesbian?
Well, then she's going to have to get run off.
There's a bigger cost to all of this that never appears in a box score, and it's worth saying out loud. Every time a defender can grab an arm hard enough to leave visible marks without hearing a whistle, it sends a message to every other team in the league. This may be an acceptable way to defend the best player in basketball right now. Coaches study film too. If the tape keeps showing scratches, grabs, and physical contact going unpunished, other coaching staffs will notice. They can start building defensive plans around exactly that kind of pressure, because why wouldn't they if it slows a player down and officials allow it? That's how one questionable tactic can spread far beyond a single matchup. It stops being one defender, one team, or one isolated possession. It becomes a blueprint, and once that blueprint starts circulating, reversing the habit becomes much harder. That's why moments like this deserve more attention than a viral clip that burns brightly for a few hours before everyone moves to the next storyline. The real issue isn't simply what happened in one game. It's what happens if everyone watching decides that this this is just how you have to guard her now, because when aggressive defense crosses into repeated contact and nobody intervenes, the standard can quietly change without anyone officially announcing it. And by the time people realize what became normal, the entire league may already be playing by a different set of expectations.
No foul called. So she could get hit, she could get assaulted, but they only call fouls if it's on her for not doing anything. That's what I've learned. Look at this. So Angel Reese could hit Caitlin Clark in the throat, but Caitlin Clark can't get near Angel Reese. What about this double standard? So she could elbow Caitlin Clark in the chest to create space, but it's a foul on Caitlin Clark, but Caitlin Clark slightly moves her arm and the girl flops, and it's a foul on Caitlin Clark. So it's all.
So keep grabbing, keep scratching, and keep hoping the whistle stays silent. One more possession, one more quarter, one more game. Caitlin Clark has already shown everyone watching what happens next. And she's shown it 5 different times now, more than everyone else in WNBA history combined. She gets knocked around, gets back up, and attacks again. That's the story unfolding right now, whether the whistle acknowledges it or not, and until something actually changes in the way these games are officiated, expect this pattern to keep returning whenever she steps onto that floor. But none of this means every hard foul against Clark is malicious, and it would be unfair to label an entire roster based on a handful of questionable plays. Basketball is physical. Contact happens constantly, and not every bump, grab, or scratch proves someone intended to cause harm. That's important to acknowledge. But when similar incidents keep appearing game after game, arm after arm, while the free throw numbers seem to reinforce what viewers are already noticing, it becomes much harder to dismiss everything as coincidence. At that point, the issue isn't one isolated collision or one viral replay. It's a pattern worth monitoring, discussing, and investigating. The league doesn't need to assume the worst to take a closer look. It simply needs to examine what is happening before another week passes and the entire conversation disappears beneath the next headline. Because if the same pattern keeps repeating, ignoring it won't make the questions disappear. It will only make them louder.